everybody. It's Allison Schaefer, family therapist, parenting expert, mother of 2 daughters who are in university. And this is our second Facebook Live discussion about how to manage and prevent underage drinking. We're starting at 8 o'clock, but for those people that are just jumping on, I wanted you to know that you're in the right place. We're going to be taking your questions. We're going to be having a dialogue. So hang in there. We will start formally at 8 o'clock, but just wanted to do a little tech check. Make sure Catherine Howell, my partner here, is able to see things all right, and she's going to help me with questions because I'm blind. I can't see your little point size. That's why I got to wear the glasses. But anyways, we will be doing a formal Q&A at the end, but please post your comments, post your questions throughout. This is really about our time together and having an opportunity to have access to an expert, and this is really about me being here for you. So it's going to make me feel a lot more valuable and know that I'm having a good use of time and being of value to you if you post your questions. So looking forward to chatting with everybody at 8 o'clock. It's timely, I think, that we're doing this at this point. Hey, Kathy, welcome back from Rio. I'm so glad you're with us. So part of why this is important is because we're at the end of the summer, and you know, I don't know about you guys, but my daughters, even though they're not going into first year university, they're going into 3rd and 4th year university. The end of August is all about getting ready for that big exodus. You know, it's the whole back to school thing is just hijacking everybody's mind. So part of why I really wanted today's conversation to take place is because if you've got a child who's going to leave home, and whether they're going to college or they are going to their first year dorm university experience, I'm telling you, we need to be proactive in having a conversation and going over some things with them because they're going to be in a whole new world. So that's what tonight's talk is about, what we need to be doing now in these last little bits of August in order to ensure that our kids are safe and to prevent underage drinking. So it's a topic that makes a lot of parents nervous, and I know a lot of people have questions about how to handle this properly and not set off alarm bells and be realistic about it. So that's what our time together is tonight. So we're just about at 8 o'clock. I want to make sure people are here. I see, hey, Nat's joined. I've got Catherine is here. Okay, here, my baby is going to high school this year. Well, so this is another transition, and I'm happy to talk about that transition too. September is really everybody finding new social groups and a new way of trying to find our identities, and that does not stop when we go off to university. It's sort of a lifelong challenge to find our social belonging in our peer groups, and I mean that's at 50 and 70 and 80. We are social creatures, and we need to belong. So you know, we always kind of give kids the rap about peer pressure, but there's fundamentally a need to be belonging, accepting, and how we find those people. So it says a new one for me is that he's in French immersion. Oh, so he's going to be drinking in French. He's going to it'll be the Corona 1664 after 3 years of English. Yeah, that is going to be a big transition. Our kids are maturing. Hey, and Maureen's here too. So thanks everybody. It's 8 o'clock. I promised I wanted to be punctual and get started. I've got some material that I've prepared. But as I said, keep commenting, keep putting up your questions. We will open the floor to discussion after I've kind of covered off a couple of key points. And so for those of you just joining us, the idea here is that we've got the last couple of weeks of August, the last couple of weeks, I know our kids are feeling excited / anxious about going off to their transition, whether it's into high school, off to university. But it's a time where we have to capitalize on passing on some information that we can't just assume that our kids know intuitively. And so think about it from their perspective. They're leaving home, and when you go to campus now, because when I was growing up, we had grade 13. We were a little bit older. We were already legal drinking age by the time we left home. Now they're going off to school. They are now the minority in the sense that they are now in a world of people that drink. And so they have access to alcohol. Alcohol is all around them. And again, remember, there's this need to belong and fit in. And there's this emancipation. You're finally free of your parents. And you are launching into adulthood. And it's a super excited time. You know, you got kind of one foot in childhood and you want support and security. But you got one foot where you're practicing being an adult. And in this world, that's a world with alcohol. But they're still minors. And that has real implications. So us as parents, we've been used to parenting 24/7 with our kids under our roof. I mean, sure, we didn't necessarily know what they were doing on the weekends, and we couldn't exactly follow them out to bush parties, but that's very different than them being literally away. They can't call you drunk from a party and say, can you pick me up? Because they might be in a different province now. They might be 4 hours away. They've got to be ready to handle themselves independently. So this is part of our preparation around this, to understand it's an exciting time of life, but we've got to really amp up. What's our last little piece here in terms of parenting to make sure that outside of our viewership, that they are making good choices for themselves. And the good news I think that parents need to hear is that we often feel like we are hearing strange things in the media, scary things in the media, and we tend to feel very powerless. And I really want to give you a positive spin on this, because in fact, what our research shows is that you still are the #1 influence on whether your kids will drink underage or not. You actually do still have that power if you parent properly. And that's part of what we're talking about tonight. Because there's a developmental piece that happens in our children. As we said, we've now got young adults. They're not children anymore. They're not even teen adolescents. These are young adults. So when our kids were little, the role that we took on in their life as a parent started as being an educator. We needed to teach them, that's a beer, that has alcohol. Alcohol is for adults, that's not for you. As they get into earlier adolescence, we become more of a facilitator, and we're helping them facilitate these kinds of questions. But as a young adult, you're stepping back even further. You're being the coach, you're being the consultant. And the amazing thing about this is, whether this is in the capacity of alcohol or whether it's in anything that you might be trying to have influence in terms of their values and their behavior choices in any area, studying, whether they get a tattoo, the friends they pick, the hobbies they pursue, any of those things, that when you have a relationship with your child where they respect you and where they feel respected and where they feel seen, when there's that intimacy in the parent-child relationship, your kids will listen keenly to what you have to say. And I'll tell you, they do not want to let you down, believe it or not. They really do want you to think highly of them. If they respect you, then they see you as somebody who like a coach, like a soccer coach, or somebody who is a bit of an inspiration to them. They want to live up, they want to grow up to be like you. You're like a mentor parent to them. And that only is going to happen if the relationship is strong. So we've got to figure out, how is it that we can maximize our ability to influence our children and the choices they make when they're not around us. And it's not through controlling them. It's not through punishment. It's not through being punitive and being upset with them. It's about living with them through their experience. And so in the role of going off to university, we can talk about this. You are going to be out there and there is going to be alcohol, and you are a minor, and it is against the law. And so whether you like the law or not, we don't get to pick and choose which laws we're going to obey and not. Like, I'm not going to pay my taxes. Well, I think I'm going to jaywalk. I'm going to go on green or stop on green and go on red. Like, we would have chaos. So if we can get them to understand that, as difficult and as much as we agree or disagree, that it's a personal family value that we're law abiding and that we abide all laws because the society works better that way. So part of why the laws were made, and I think this is important to review with kids as well, is that the brain is actually under construction. We've realized this in recent years, that up until the age of 25, the brain is still growing, but not just linear like this. There's actually like a major adolescent rewiring piece that is impeding to their decision-making abilities, to their impulse control. And so think about the other things that are age limited. Your driver's license, right to vote, ability to a trust fund. So the fact that some other decision makers have said that in our province, that this is our value system, that this is the age of being able to drink, then we're either legally fight those laws, but we're certainly going to obey them while we can, that we want to be law-abiding citizens. So part of that then means you're going to go off into university. What are the policies of the campus? Because they do have policies, and you don't want a kid who finds out that they got expelled because they didn't realize, well, I wasn't drinking in my dorm, I was drinking at a bar. But you may have a campus that says, so long as you're intoxicated, you are still considered a student of the university. They're kind of your guardian, the way your parent is your guardian. And therefore, you could be up for disciplinary action at your college or university if you're intoxicated, whether that happened in a dorm, whether that happened at a private house party, whatever. So I think part of it is to know you're going out into the world. We expect you to follow our family values. We expect you to make good choices for yourself. But let's review what is going on in terms of campus consequences so that they can see what might happen. It's amazing how many kids are absolutely shocked, had no idea that those were the policies of their campus. So I would make sure that those are reviewed. And the second thing is, now notice what you'll find in a lot of these campus policies too is that, again, what they're going to do is they're going to give education to the students. They want to give them education. I'm saying do the same thing as a parent. Ask them, say, what led you to drink? What was the situation? What we find is that when kids are engaged in their university experience, and they find a group of friends that are more likely to be like-minded and they are not worrying about their social status, they can get busy being engaged and not have to have this fear of rejection because they're the one who doesn't pass the bottle. And you can say to your kids, when you look at what's a true friend, is a true friend somebody who makes you do something you don't want to do or makes you break the law? I mean, that's a true friend should honor who you are. And you can give very pragmatic tips. I raised 2 daughters. I said, nobody has any business knowing what's in your drink. So take a sippy cup, because people in that environment have been known to put illicit drugs and other things into people's drinks against their knowing it. And so put a sippy cup lid on. This has become, it's not even considered strange anymore. It's just kind of a hip thing. But it means that you know where your drink is, you know that you're safe. And so who knows if it's grape juice or wine or whatever. It's nobody's business but your own. So look after yourself. Drinking groups. I think it's important that our kids know what the signs are of intoxication and when they need to get help. So having frank conversations with your kids so that they're going into this environment knowing that although you have said it is my expectation that you're going to be law-abiding and uphold our family values, you're also at the same time saying you're going into what can be a troubling situation, and I want to make sure that you know how to conduct yourself and how to ask for help and how to reach out to me. So again, using that relationship as a protective factor. When kids go off to university, yes, they're all excited. They do not want you being a helicopter parent. They do not need you saying, did you eat? Did you have your orange juice? Let me see your room. They don't need the micromanaging. But do they ever need to know that you love and care for them? So a simple text, love you, thinking of you, knowing the names of their friends, knowing when their exams are so they can say, hey, how you doing? How's your stomach? Did you make it through? Those are saying I care about you and I'm invested in your life that you're leading independently, which is different than managing their life. I think you also have to talk about what's available on campuses for them in terms of support. There is student counseling services because it is a tough time. There are all kinds of clubs that will help you find social interest groups, including things that help you de-stress, like yoga, like exercising, like mindfulness practice, getting out into nature and hikes, anything that are those stress relieving items. So what we find is that kids that are connected socially and kids that have strong relationships at home turn to their social groups for support rather than being vulnerable and turning to alcohol as a solution to some of their distressors. So we provide all of that. And again, it's finding that sweet spot between being the available parent who's caring and interested from afar without being the micromanaging, rescuing, niggly, parent, and finding that sweet spot for you. And figuring out how you can continue to maintain contact in a way that is natural and authentic for them. And I'll tell you something, if you've got boys, they're not as verbal as girls. So you might text them, I love you, and they don't respond. That does not mean that your text was not important. They absolutely received that love and support. They just might not, thanks, Mom. They're not going to heart emoticon back. And you're still doing your part, and I promise you, they are feeling that safety net. They are feeling that love and support, and it means a lot to this age group. So yeah, there might be the acting like I don't care and the acting like I want to be on my own, but you still need to be that pillar of unconditional love, acceptance, judgment, and information about the new challenges that they are going to face in this adult world of drinking where they're the minority non-drinker. Now I'm looking at like a gazillion questions coming in here. I'm dying to see what people are posting, Catherine. What am I missing? What am I missing in the mouse point here? Anything good I should know about?
Lots of great comments, but yeah, lots of great comments, okay. Lots of great feedback.
Okay. So we had the earlier question. I know that Kathy was mentioning about not everybody's going off to university. There's some kids that are transitioning into high school. And in fact, I have to tell you with my own kids' experience, I found that one of the most vulnerable periods was actually middle school, because it's the first time where they discovered they can, break into their parents' liquor cabinet, but they have absolutely no understanding that of how liquor works. And these are kids who think that they can, down a 26er of vodka, and that if they have a Red Bull, that's going to undo alcohol. It doesn't work that way. They don't actually even know the science of drinking. All you become is a very awake drunk. It does not undo. And they don't understand what volumes look like. What, a shot versus a beer versus a glass of wine, and how big is a glass of wine. They really have no understanding of this. And so when you're very young and you're making poor decisions like this, we had a situation where a boy stole a bottle of his parents' vodka, downed the whole vodka bottle, passed out in a culvert, and the two people that were with him said, well, I had to go home. It was time for dinner. I didn't want to get in trouble. This is bad decision making. We have to convince our kids that you are not going to get in trouble for making somebody safe, that you need to call somebody. So this is why these punitive approaches in parenting, and I'm not just talking about alcohol. I mean, if you have a kid that gets yelled at because they broke a lamp or they bring a bad mark home from school and you yell at them, why would they come to you and say, I just did something illegal, I got a friend in trouble who's passed out in a ditch? They're not going to be willing to come forward, and this makes for worse consequences. We've seen this with kids who start fires with matches under beds, and then they hide in the closet because they're afraid to tell their parents, and then they perish in a fire. We need to prove at every opportunity that we are trustworthy to be able to handle tough, difficult conversations, and that we are good listeners. So if that means that you need to say, you know what, right now I'm just really reactive, we'll circle back and talk about this. You don't need to always talk about everything right in the minute. It's okay to say, let me gather my thoughts. Can we talk about this tomorrow? And you certainly do not want to have a conversation with a child who's intoxicated. There's no good conversation comes with talking to a drunk. You make sure they're safe, you put them to bed, you rub their back, and you say, we'll talk about this in the morning. And the conversation is not about how bad you are. The conversation is about what took you off track and what do we do differently in the future. And so when you can get those kinds of open, trusting dialogues happening, we know that we keep safety up, we reduce underage drinking, that sticking with our principles is going to reduce the incidence of underage drinking. Is it going to eliminate it completely? That's up to your kids. But I know that we're going to move them more in line when we hold those limits and boundaries, and we become that responsible, respectful, communicative parent that they can trust and come to. This is not just my opinion. Research shows that this is the route to go, to use that influence rather than the control piece. All right, so let me just open the floor to some questions here. I guess we've got, oh, hey, Christina's here, Katie's here, Mark's here. Hey, how are you? Yeah. Lots of comments,
yeah, about punitive approach.
Okay, go ahead, shout them out, because I can't read them. So
okay, so Christina's saying punitive approach doesn't make kids want to approach parents.
Yeah.
So true. We need to prove that we can handle and listen.
Yeah.
Maybe some more tips on how we can kind of show them that we can listen.
Yeah. So again, with the listening thing, one of the things that I recommend is, first of all, when you're trying to find a good time to talk to your kids, it's gonna be often kind of spontaneous. If you say, like, Tuesday at 8 o'clock, we're going to sit down and have the talk, it's probably not going to work so well. You're going to find that there's just some day where you're doing something. Maybe you're raking leaves, you're doing the dishes, or you just find that you're in this conversation where you're kind of clicking with your kid. And one of the ways that you can tell if you're clicking, if you're not intuitive to that kind of thing, is watch the body language. It's very interesting. When people are very attuned to one another, what we do is something called mirroring. Which means if I'm sitting with my arms up like this, you're going to put your arms up like this. If I cross my arms like this, you're going to cross your arms like this. This does not necessarily mean you're closed, but it's more that you're imitating one another. Watch where the knees are pointing. Are they kind of following you? And you should just feel a sense of ease. So it might come up about a totally different topic. Maybe you're talking about events in the news that have nothing to do with anything. But suddenly you've got this kind of, hey, we're sharing opinions, we're chatting about things, I'm learning about you, you're learning about me. And then you can move the conversation to start including alcohol. And you're gonna find it's a lot easier, not so much to talk about them and their behavior to get things going, but talk about their age cohort. Like you can say things like, hey, so are you finding that people in your age group are drinking to excess? Why do you think that's such a big thing in this day and age? What becomes impressive? What's the appeal of being drunk? And notice that everything that I just said to you ended with a question mark, right? You're inviting them to share with you what they know and what they think and what their attitudes and what their opinions are. At which point you as a parent, rather than saying, you're wrong, take my opinion, what it allows you to do is kind of hold up a mirror and say, well, that's really interesting, because I've been noticing in the media that pretty much everything I see on TV seems to have everyone in your age group seems to be portrayed in popular movies as always partying. And yet statistics show that the minority of kids actually drink. So why do you think the media wants to pick up on that? So, you're teasing out the conversation, which makes them feel like you are not judging them. You're just engaged in fascination about the topic. And they're hearing you and sort of saying, well, that is true. The media does really do that all the time. So then you can sculpt it down to their personal situations, and you're going to find that they're going to tell you more intimate stories. It's like they're testing you to say, can she handle this? Can she handle this topic? And again, I'm using the example of alcohol, but this can be the same thing that talks about money, about sex. This is not like you're going to have one talk. This is one hot topic or value-laden topic, a contentious topic, a disparate topic, whatever you want to call that you are going to developmentally augment with many conversations, and you're going to see your kids' attitudes may grow and change. And so have that higher hope for them that they haven't made some final determination yet. They're navigating their way. And as I say, if the conversation is rich and juicy, they're much more likely to listen to what you say. But if you get all judgy and wagging the finger, they're done. They're checked out. In fact, you get a kid who says, oh yeah, well, my mom's giving me a hard time. I'm going to drink despite her because I know she doesn't want me to. So if I want to make her mad, I can't think of a better way to do it than go against her wishes. So that's why we really have to keep that relationship piece alive and discuss our concerns and talk about our values and why they're important to us.
You got another one?
Yeah.
Okay, so Kathy would like to know, what are the signs you should look for if you think your child is drinking?
Oh, so signs you should be looking for if you think your child is drinking. So again, I think you have the conversation whether they're drinking or not. I would ask the question, is alcohol showing up at your parties? Pretty much from middle school on. This is just kind of like age of sexual activity. I would just assume that it's going on around them. But if you're looking for signs, again, is there alcohol missing from your cabinet? Watching them when they come home, are you noticing that they've got slurred speech? Are you noticing that they've got motor coordination issues? Are they avoiding you, meaning that they'd like to go to a lot of sleepovers rather than have you pick them up from parties? Are they looking for that extra bit of privacy where there's going to be less supervision? But again, if you're a parent who says they're never going to go to a sleepover and they're never going to go to a bush party, I'm telling you, you can keep putting up all those kind of control roadblocks, and a child who feels barricaded in that way, you're just training them to be tricky. You're just training them to be devious. It's far better to say alcohol is going to show up in your life. Someone is going to bring a bottle to a party. What will you do? Do you know how to take a pass and save face? And I'm totally fine to be the meanie in the sense of saying, if the out for your child psychologically is to say, I can't, are you kidding me? My mother is going to give me a breathalyzer when I walk in the door. Or, some kids are like the condition of going to the party is that you're going to check in on FaceTime so I can just make sure there's proper adult supervision and that everybody is doing okay. But I do have to share a personal story. And my daughter's in the other room. I could have her come tell the story, but she's given me permission to share this story. So I dropped her off once at a birthday party. And it was a weekend cottage birthday party, which again, it's August. You probably got a bunch of these going on. And some families have different values around underage drinking. This particular family said, hey, the kids are coming for a birthday party. I've arranged for each of the boys to have 2 beers. Is it okay if your daughter has 2 beers at the party? And I said, no, actually, she's a minor. That's not okay by me. And I said this right in front of my daughter and the mother. I did not say, get in the car, you're not going to this party. I said, no, thanks for asking. No, actually, no, she does not have my permission to drink. That goes against our family values. And I dropped her off. I picked her up at the end of the weekend, hugged and kissed her. Did you have a great time? Nice to see you. Thanks very much. Drove away. I never asked her if she drank. I don't know if she drank. That wasn't the important part. The important part was she heard me say, I trust you to make good choices for yourself in this environment. And that trust, she said, Mom, that trust, I don't want to broach that trust. That means everything to me, that you trust me. So again, it's the power of the relationship. So how do kids earn trust? Give it to them first. We always want to do it the opposite way. Show me that I can trust you. How about start with the trust and assume that it's not going to be breached, and then deal with it when it is. Because kids really do want to have their parents think highly of them. So think about flipping that around as well. And again, if they make a mistake, the thing about making a mistake is you got to be able to have bygones. It's not about dwelling on the past. It's about, this is a learning opportunity. So, what was it about that moment that made it difficult for you, and how can we work that out better in the future? So you're constantly trying to keep a future orientation about how to handle those situations. And part of it is, again, reminding people, you can be socially acceptable as a non-drinker because you can be the hero. Who doesn't want to be, nobody wants to be the DD. If you're the guy who says, I'll be the DD, you're like, all right, we love this guy, You can get all kinds of kudos for being the one that's actually kind of got their selves together. You will get that respect. So helping our kids handle that ability to be themselves and to know that good friends honor you for who you are, and shame on them if they have to make you someone other than who you are. That's just teaching kids about picking good friends, and giving examples of some of their role models that don't drink. There's all kinds of rock and roll stars and movie stars and whatever that just don't live that lifestyle. There's all kinds of cultures that have all kinds of wonderful festivals and weddings and all kinds of parties that do not involve alcohol, that it is not required for having fun. It's not required for social acceptance. And if they decide that's something they want to do, that's something they can do when they're legal. Good as that. They may grow up to have different values than you, but you constantly state your values and expect that they're going to stay in line. You're much more likely for them to adopt those values. If you cram those values down their throat, more likely to reject them. So it's really about this easygoing, using your influence as a good role model for them. Yeah.
Okay, Teresa wants to know, what do you do if you know or suspect another parent is allowing alcohol?
What to do if you know another parent is allowing. So again, you can't control other people. You can only decide what you're going to do. I could just say that again 100. That's 90% of therapy. I just told you right there. When you come to the realization in life that you cannot control other people, you can only decide what you're going to do, and you can only decide how you can influence a situation. That's really your starting point. So I don't expect the world to sanitize how they're doing life. I only expect my relationship with my child to be fine. So now I might say, you're going to this party, I want to make sure there's adequate supervision. I mean, I've seen situations where house parties have been overtaken and things like that. I've certainly had conversations with my adult friends and said, do you know that if you are supervising a party, let's say your values are that you think it's okay that kids drink, but do you know that if you're supervising a party and something happens, somebody binge drinks, somebody gets into some medical thing, God forbid, and every year there are kids who will die in alcohol-related incidences as minors where there was some adult who was supposedly in the role of supervision. And you can be prosecuted, persecuted, fined, potential jail terms. So I think a lot of parents don't realize that they're putting themselves at risk. So for me, it's like, I don't want to supervise a party with that going on. And again, it's about educating the public, which is why we're seeing the drinking rates for minors is coming down, because we're educating parents, we're educating teachers who then pass curriculum on to students, we're getting better information in the hands of our young students, we're changing the culture of universities. Frosh Week, there are non-drinking Frosh Week activities now. You can be engaged with all your, great bonding experiences alcohol-free on most of the campuses because they saw that it was a problem. So So the culture is shifting. We are improving matters. So again, it's just that feel good note. Don't feel helpless. Don't feel like you can't change things. So I wouldn't talk to the parent. I'd just say, it's, I'm only concerned with your choices, your behavior, your safety. And if we deem together that that's a safe environment and that I can trust you to say, to conduct yourself in that environment, well, great. My influence is to you, not the other parent. Yeah, I wouldn't be getting on the phone unless it was, like I said, a friend that I'd say FYI. Yeah, great question.
Okay, Katie wants to know, how do you handle bringing up drinking and driving, a difficult topic for adults, let alone teens?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tell you just idiosyncratically, I find that the younger generation seems to be so much more, like they're just like, if you go out, somebody's the DD. They seem to be, have that in their culture much more than a couple generations ago, who that wasn't really on people's radars in terms of public education. If you're talking to like a 50 to 80-year-old, that wasn't part of what we were trained around. So it's newer thinking for the older generation. But you absolutely do have to talk to them about drinking and driving. It's a zero tolerance, I think until you're 22 in this province, you can look that up. Zero, like not a sip, zero, no blood alcohol to drive a car. And in this day and age when we have Uber and taxis and many cities, you can campaign your cities. I was at a wedding in Midland last summer. There's the taxis are free. They're just like, just get everybody home safely. You can make it a public policy in your town. So there's buses, there's all kinds of, there's programs, 1-800-CALL, whatever. And of course, calling home, that's what I'm saying. You want your kids to say, I made a mistake, I need help, I know I'm not supposed to drink underage, but here I am. And you go, thank you for calling, sweetie, you did the right thing. I am there, I got your back, I'm so glad you're using your noggin. It's that they really need to understand that it's not just about you making a decision for convenience. You are risking the lives of everyone. People die on the roads all the time. So you can share those statistics. When something comes up on the news, which inevitably it does, you can say, that looks like an alcohol-related incident. And can I tell you, and the same with sleep. I was just thinking about that with that Boots and Hearts concert my kids were all off at, and these people partied for 4 days, and even if they all got sober before getting in their cars to leave that parking lot, how many of those kids had much sleep? Driving tired is as bad as driving influence. Your cognitive capacities are really gone. So if you've got university students that are studying for exams and they're trying to pull an all-nighter and then come home for a Thanksgiving dinner, you tell them to sleep. So it takes a lot of, there's a lot of mental power that goes into operating heavy machinery. And can I say, not just cars, people, this includes boats, this includes sea-doos and motorcycles and dirt bikes and, skateboards, bicycles. You do not want to be operating anything mechanical when you're drinking. Nothing, not chainsaws, nothing. Okay, so you have to explain to them how little alcohol it takes to actually impair judgment, and it can really lead to serious consequences. Again, you can just wait until something comes up in the news. Stuff comes up in the news all the time, and that can really contextualize things for kids. When they hear stories about their peer group, that's when it really lands home for them. So sharing stories, I think, storytelling is really important. Yeah, great questions.
Christina's saying, my friend told me that her 16-year-old son's friend had a house party and let the kids drink because it's safer to drink at home if the parents were there. They'd rather know that they're safe. How would you approach that? Yeah, so again, I hear this all the time. They're gonna drink anyways, so I might as well supervise their drinking. I just keep thinking, like, substitute any other drug, like they're just gonna mainline Coke, so I might as well supervise it. No, like the truth of the matter is that is really abandoning all hope, which really means you're condoning it. So let me give you another example of why I think it's important to not go down this route, and why we know that our research that says that when we hold the no drinking ideal, that we do constrain behavior. So I'll give you another example that might help you see it. Let's imagine you have a kid and you say, curfew's 12 o'clock, gotta be home at 12 o'clock. And the kid comes home at 12:15, 12:30. And you say, well, you know what, forget it. They're not even listening to curfew anyway, so forget it, there's no curfew. What's the likelihood of that child's behavior? Which way they're gonna deviate? They're gonna deviate to coming home at 1 and 2 and 3. Whereas if you say, Curfew's at 12 o'clock. You came in at 12:15. What's your trouble? Why are you having trouble making curfew? How can we make things better? The curfew is still 12 o'clock. You are more likely to constrain behavior. If I had to plot the data on a graph, you're going to have more 12:20s and 12:15s and 12:10s as arrival times than if you do not have a limit or boundary at all. So please do not give up hope on this. And as I say, you are putting yourself in a legal position. You are condoning drinking. You are having an influence when you establish limits and boundaries. You really do. Research shows us. We've brought the drink, I think, and sorry, I don't have that number right in front of me, but basically in the last 10 years, we've gone from 53% of 15 to 19-year-olds saying that they had a sip of alcohol in the last year to 41%. As a behavior change in one decade, that's very big. Very big. So we are being successful. And of course, now that it's the minority, that's even better, because it means when our kids go out, there's less people around them drinking, because it's not the majority of people. It is the exception to the rule. So it's going to become even better. The more we do this journey together, the more we're going to push things in that direction.
We've got time for one more question.
One more question. Yes, thank you.
So, as parents, this is from Twitter, as parents, how do we lead by example if we are drinking and enjoying a backyard barbecue?
Yeah.
And how do we lead with example without?
So how do we lead as example? So I can absolutely tell you that you model behavior to your kids, and that's over everything. You model being extroverted. There's a genetic piece there too, but you model a million things. The speed at which you speak, the pitch of your voice. Your kids are watching you all the time. Are you humorous? Are you athletic? Do you eat healthy? Are books important? You model so many things that your kids pick up on, which means you're also modeling your relationship with alcohol. So if you have a healthy relationship with alcohol and you imbibe and you enjoy a drink, that's fine. Your kids will probably grow up and see that, be a social drinker. But if you're the person who comes home every day at 5 o'clock and cracks open a drink and drinks until you go to bed, you're more likely to say, no, that's what adults do. So when I grow up, that's going to be my pattern of drinking. But I think it's important to say to kids, and this goes back to the age piece, which is if you're an adult, you have different rights and privileges than you do when you're a child. And so, yeah, you're at the backyard barbecue and you're not drinking because you're a minor, and I'm at the backyard barbecue and I am drinking because I'm actually of age majority. And so just the same way that when you were 13, you weren't allowed to drive the car, you didn't get mad at me because I was old enough to drive. That's one of the privileges that comes with maturation, and your day will come too. So I think you also have to speak to Uncle Al just, tripped and fell and he was drinking irresponsibly. He had too much to drink. So you have those conversations. So yes, I do think kids are watching all the time and they're modeling, but I would not say that an adult needs to not drive a car because their kid can't drive a car, or it's okay to say there's things that adults are allowed to do that kids are not, and that's just life. Life is not necessarily fair, but the kids can understand that. They really can. There's many things in their lives that are like that. Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. This is an ongoing conversation, by the way. So this was our second one. We've got other ones planned throughout the year, and we're really tying them to themes of hot spots that occur in the calendar year that increase the likelihood that our kids are going to underage drink, and giving us another opportunity to say, hey, we're coming up to something important. Let's revisit that conversation again. So I hope this has been helpful and informative. Invite other people to check this. It'll be archived. Join us for our next one. I've got a whole series of videos on my YouTube channel. If you have a hard time with the conversation, just sit down with your kids. They can watch the YouTube channel. We'll post a link to that. So there's more information there. And then if you sign up for my e-newsletter, I'm constantly sending out once a month, I send out an e-newsletter and talk about my upcoming events, and certainly on Twitter and Facebook, I'll post advertisements for when the next one is. So continue to share the good information. Let's keep the dialogue going. I think it's great when we enter into this conversation together. We all support one another. I do think we can change the culture of underage drinking for our kids. So thanks, everybody. Have a nice night.